Namaste, good evening to all. Welcome to day 4 of the Let Go series. Sit comfortably, back straight, eyes gently closed. Check that your posture is comfortable. Fingers in Chin Mudra, thumb touching the index finger. Bring the awareness to the breath. Observe the normal breathing for a few rounds. As you continue watching the breath, feel the changes to the breathing pattern. Let's all chant 3 rounds of Omkara. Each time you breathe in, as you breathe out, continue with the Om chanting. Inhale deeply. Bring the palms together in Namaskara Mudra. Omkara and the Sahana Vavatu prayer all together. Inhale deeply. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Gently bow down, expressing your gratitude. Take the blessings from the God of your choice, the higher reality, your gurus. Release. Welcome again to the day 4 of the Let Go Discovering Lasting Happiness series. As we saw, we have all been practicing yoga. We are yoga practitioners. Some of us are yoga teachers. So yoga is the practice, whereas the Vedanta is the science behind what the practice we are doing. So they say that it's like Raghuramji was saying, the spiritual sadhana is not renouncing the world, but being more sensitive to the needs of the family and the society. It makes one more connected to the people. Yeah, we have this phrase called the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So that is what the spiritual sadhana path leads you to. You know, the whole world is your family. So we saw that we all need to maintain moderation in all the activities that we do. So in the Atma Pariksha, it is asking that question of who am I? What is my nature? Yeah, so what it leads us to is the silence, the expansiveness, and the bliss. And we recognize that we are that part of that universal consciousness. So that is what the Atma Pariksha was all about. And then we saw that how speed and focusing was the problem when we face dukkha. Yeah, when we are tired, when we are tensed, what is the state of our mind? Full of speed. Yeah, so the solution was to slow down and feel that expansiveness. So that was what we saw in the dukkha pariksha. And in sukha, yesterday we saw sukha pariksha. In sukha pariksha, normally what we feel that sukha is in the object that we see outside, object we buy, or the people that we are with. Yeah, sukha is in the world outside. But again, we have not also seen that that sukha is short-lived. So the real sukha is the feeling that we have inside us, the joy within us. That is the real sukha that we saw in the Sukha Pariksha also. And beautifully, both Prabha, Bala gave beautiful examples, how day-to-day examples of how we are in when we are in the state of dukkha, and how is our mind when we are in the state of sukha. See, all our activities are outgoing, correct? So to understand ourselves, it is necessary, like Bala said, to take a complete U-turn and come back and look inside us, within us, to get a glimpse of what our true nature is. And then we saw about the Avastatraya Pariksha, where we had the different state. Yeah, but each state is unique to us. All of us are in this world wakeful state, but our experiences are different. So like Raghuramji was saying, it is like a fingerprint. All of us, each state is like unique to us. So, and again, we saw that we are in that state where that calmness inside from where we perceive the world. So today's session, we have the Panchakosha Viveka by Bala, and then followed by Necessity of Sadhana by me. So over to Bala for her session on Panchakosha Viveka.
Namaskara. Yogabharati welcomes all of you to the 4th day of Jnana Saptaha. Yes, the topic we will start today is Panchakosha Viveka. So what is this? Let us plunge into it directly. So we all have these fundamental questions. We have been seeing these, questions of who am I really? What am I made of? Am I just this, body made of the Panchabhuta, Akash, Vayu, Agni, Jal, Prithvi, or is there anything more to just this body? And what actually makes me exist? If I am right now here, breathing, talking, what is it? Is it, that must be something which is helping me do all this, which is making me do all this. So what is it? Is there something beyond the body that I see, that I perceive? Is there someone, first of all, who has created this universe, or has it happened randomly? And yes, how is everything functioning? Even in my body, if I see everything is functioning in such a beautiful rhythm, and how is that possible? What is life? So there are many such questions, and I'm sure each one of us can come up with a lot of questions like this, basic questions, which remain questions for many of us. But what happened to our ancient rishis? Thankfully, so they made them to a quest. So every question, they actually took up that question seriously. They started searching, looking for answers. So we have to be very grateful that we have something called Upanishads. Yeah. So these Upanishads, what does this Upanishad mean? Very simple. Upa means near, and where the disciple is under the able guidance of a guru. Guru, a master, is someone who knows exactly where the disciple is and who knows how to guide the disciple. So such a guru would guide the disciple to understand, to seek his question, to make the answer a real experience for the student. So this is what we see in every Upanishad that we come across. So every Upanishad, when they take up few questions, the disciple asks questions to the Guru, and the Guru guides throughout the disciple, and Guru's grace is available to the disciple all the time, and because of which disciple is able to get the answer, understand the answer, and make the answer as his own experience. So this is the whole Upanishad. That is how the Upanishad, all of the Upanishads are. So every Upanishad, if you take, so if you see, it starts, it is like our modern experiments. Okay, so we can consider rishis as great scientists. So if we have to start an experiment, we first have an aim, right? So a question is like an aim, and then there has to be raw materials or tools that has to be used by the one who is experimenting. So those days, the place they were experimenting forests were their labs, and tapasya was their method of experiment, and Guru would give the tools, that are needed for the student to observe, and in the process of observation, in the process of tapasya, the a prakriya would emerge, that is called method. Okay, so one such method that we would see now is Panchakosha Viveka. One method that we saw yesterday, that we've been seeing, Sukha Dukkha Pariksha and Avasthatraya, all those are also different prakriya. So prakriya is nothing but the method that emerges as the student goes ahead with his experiment of tapasya under the guidance of Guru. So this is the beautiful, flow of how Upanishads are structured. So Panchakosha Viveka, let us see what this Panchakosha Viveka means. Yeah. This is going to give a glimpse of who am I actually. So Panchakosha Viveka is in detail dealt in full depth given in Taittiriya Upanishad. So in Taittiriya Upanishad, it starts with the seeker, we can call disciple or the seeker, asking the question, "O Master, give me the wisdom of self. Tell me about the causal stuff," meaning which has created this whole thing, what has caused this whole creation. Yes, give me the wisdom. So this is the question. So Guru would never give any answer on the platter. Okay, unlike we are fortunate enough to get these answers now, but Guru would, like what I told earlier, would give the tools needed for the seeker and would give a small trigger, okay, a trigger point from where his experiment can start, from where his tapasya can start. So the seeker here is Bhrigu Rishi and the Guru is Varuna. So for this question that Bhrigu has asked Varuna, so now Varuna gives a beautiful trigger. Before we get on to the trigger, what is the tool that Varuna says? Very beautifully, I really liked the way Shastriji has written here. So the tool that he says is our body, the vital energy that makes everything function, all the senses, the indriyas, yes, so which is our body, mind, intellect. So these are the tools given to us for this whole experiment of finding out who I am. Yes, so to get that wisdom of the true nature of self, the tools used are body, mind, intellect. Yes, so this is the thing. And the trigger, what is the trigger that Guru gives, Varuna gives to Bhrigu Maharishi is, he says, go contemplate on that from which everything comes, that which sustains everything, and to which everything goes back. Yeah. So let me repeat. Please ensure that you listen carefully. It is a very deep trigger for the student. This is how the Upanishad starts. So the Guru says that from which everything comes, that which sustains everything, and to which everything goes back. That's all. This is what Guru has given. And now it is the students' effort to go meditate, do tapasya and find answers. So student did not leave. Oh, this was some question that I asked and the Guru has given me something I don't want to contemplate. No. Their quest, they were they did not push aside these questions. These were dying questions for them. They wanted answers. So the quest starts for the disciple. So after, I don't know for how long he did the tapasya, after some time he comes back to the Guru and says, I know, I think I am this Annamaya. Annamaya means this body, yeah, which is made of Anna, food. So the body comes from food. It is completely sustained by food, Anna, and it goes back to earth, right? Once it is buried, it goes back. So it goes back. So this is, I am this Annamaya. This is the first fact that the disciple realizes. He comes and shares it to the Guru. Guru says, go continue your tapasya. So why? So this is the special thing that I found in Let Go book is for every stage, beautifully Shastriji has given this thing of why did Guru ask the student to go and contemplate more? Okay, so this is not something that we have to go to the forest and understand. Even now, right now, sitting here, I understand that when there is somebody who is dead, right, the body is there. If that person was that body, yes, then why do we say that he has passed away, right? So we all know somewhere that there is something beyond this body, and we are not made of just this body, just this Annamaya, right? That is something very basic. So definitely sitting here, I know that. So Guru, because of this, Guru told, please go and contemplate more. You are not just this Annamaya. There is more to it. So he goes back, he contemplates, comes back and says, oh Guru, I know now there is some vital energy which is flowing, which is making everything function. Because that vital energy, because the prana is moving, okay, that is because of which everything is functioning, because of which everything is sustained. Okay, and if the prana is not there, this is not going to function. So I am this pranamaya. So the second one is pranamaya, is what Bhrigu Maharishi comes and tells Varuna. Again, Guru says, go and continue your tapasya. So this again, if we look at, if we have to understand to this intellect, you know, why do we think there has to be more, something more than the pranamaya? Imagine a person in coma. Yeah. So when a person is in coma, the prana is working. All the body parts, the digestive system, respiratory system, everything is working. Yes. Yet there is an imbalance. It is not working properly, but it is working. So the prana is there. Yet we don't consider that the person is there, right? There is something missing for that person to be alive, right? So that, what is that then? So there is something beyond this Annamaya and Pranamaya, right? So now this tapasya continues for the student, Bhrigu. And he continues, after some time he comes back and he tells Varuna, see, now I know, okay, there are these thoughts in the mind. The thoughts, they keep coming up, okay, the thoughts become my actions. So these thoughts are dictating everything in my life. Because of one thought, yeah, there is one thought coming up, I am hungry now, and then I eat, okay, and then that thought goes away, and there is another thought that comes. So the thought is the one which comes, which sustains my life, and I go back to the thought. So I am this constant flow of thoughts, manonmaya, he says, mind, manonmaya. Again, Guru says, oh my disciple, please go do your tapasya, continue. You have still not reached the you think, even now sitting here, let us understand, why do we think that there has to be something beyond this thought also? Yeah. So the mind is nothing but a constant flow of thoughts. That's all. The mind does not know whether it is the mind does not know whether it is doing the right thing or the wrong thing. Yeah. The beautiful example that Shastriji has given is, you know, when a child, for a child, okay, if you give, say, or someone who doesn't even know, if you give okay. Sorry, there was some issue. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, Bala. Yeah, you can continue.
Okay, we were. Till where did you hear?
Yeah, you said beyond the mind now.
Beyond the mind, yes. So if we say there is something beyond the mind, because mind is just thoughts, it does not know what is right and what is wrong. So there is something which guides somebody to know what is right, what is wrong, how to take a decision, yeah, whether this is true or this is not true. So there is something beyond the mind. Back to meditate. So the guru, as per the guru told, the disciple goes back and he meditates. And then he comes back and he says, yes, now I know. Okay, it is the Vijnana. Vijnana is the guiding principle within me, which is always constantly telling me the right path to take. Yes, which is the source of information, which is the source of information that I've gathered over lives, which is there deep within, and which says which is right, which is wrong, which is real, which is unreal. Okay, so the intellect. And then Guru again says, no, 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 you have still not hit the right answer. Go back, meditate. So, what do you think will be even beyond this intellect? Because the intellect is what we have seen, which differentiates a human from the animal kingdom, right? This guiding principle, which actually tells us what is real, which the discriminates, which helps us to discriminate between the right and wrong, which helps us to discriminate between the real and the unreal. This intellect is what actually makes the human being different from the animal kingdom. Then what would be there beyond the intellect? So for this, a beautiful example that is Shastriji gives is, say for example, there is a scientist who, or you can even take a scientist who works, very hard in the lab and does a wonderful experiment using his intellect, and he has found answer to it. Everything is there. So after all that, somewhere he has used his intellect only, but somewhere there is a need for him to go back, sit, relax, be with himself. Of late, we all hear, right? Let me be with myself. So just be. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be. Yes, this thing is there in each one of us. Okay, where our mind stops working, yeah, where our intellect is also kind of taking rest, and we are in that state where there's nothing, that empty mind which we saw yesterday, similar to that. So we all seek that sometimes, right? So what that state is. So now when the disciple goes back, and when the disciple is contemplating, he reaches that state. So that state is called as Anandamaya. So the moment he reaches that state, he stays there. He does not even come back to the Guru. So he has realized that that is his true nature, where everything is in balance. Yes, there is no flow of thoughts. Yes, everything, there are no agitations in the mind. Mind is not coming at all between the outer world or whatever, and he is totally in touch with his true nature. So that is the Anandamaya. So all these five are called Panchakosha. The first one, he comes with it goes from outside to within, or we can say it goes from the gross to the subtle. The grossest layer is Annamaya, okay, where we are made of this body, right? And then the next layer that he says is the vital energy, the Pranamaya. And then he goes more subtler, right? Thoughts. If you say the body, or I can perceive through all my senses. So it is the grossest. And then subtle, prana, I don't perceive, but sometimes we do feel the presence of the pranic body, right? Many a times in our meditation, many a times when we are doing pranayama, we do feel that energy flow. That is the pranamaya. And then thoughts are something that we don't see, but we know it is there. It is subtler. So that is a subtler kosha, the Manonmaya kosha. Beyond the Manonmaya kosha is the Vijnanamaya kosha, the intellect which is helping us being intelligent in the outer world, which is helping us in our inner world also to understand which is true, which is not true, which do I hold on to, which do I let go, is the job of the intellect. Yeah, so this is the Vijnanamaya kosha, and then the subtlest is the Anandamaya Kosha. Just to read from the book. So this is what Brigu says. Once he comes back, Guru Varuna says, from this Ananda you are born. Your activity is sustained. Just see the similarity between the trigger that the Guru gives and the experiential answer that the disciple has got through his tapasya. From Ananda you are born. Your activity is sustained. It is because of Ananda that you experience here. You get back to your Ananda when you die. So this is the one which is the source, which sustains and into which all our activity dissolves. Just like the Sushupti state that we saw yesterday, when all our activity dissolve and we are in that Ananda. So that is the Anandamaya Kosha. Okay. So this is the Panchakosha model that is given in Taittiriya Upanishad. So just to quickly run through the Panchakosha, this gives a broader view of who am I, isn't it? The first time when I heard, my mind was totally blown. Oh my God, so much is there. And then we do come up with a lot of questions. We will get answers slowly for all that. So the body, the Annamaya, physical body, yes, which has, I don't think I need to explain all these things to you. And then comes the, now even this aura, all this biomagnetic field and all are proven in modern science. So the presence of this. So this is the Pranamaya Kosha, the energy field, because of which everything functions in the physical body. The control, if we have control over the prana, we get control over the physical body. And then comes the Manonmaya, the subtler than the Pranamaya. Okay, this is the conscious mind. Okay, where there are emotions, feelings, all these things. Okay, this is the conscious mind, Manonmaya, which is just flow of thoughts, thought after one thought after the other. Yeah. And then the decisive mind, the intellect, the inner conscience, we can call it, the inner voice, all our value systems, everything is there in the intellect, which is constantly guiding us. Yeah. So that is the Vijnanamaya. A little more than this, more than just the guiding us in the outer world, it also guides us within to know our true nature. It is this Vijnanamaya which gives handle to the Anandamaya Kosha. Okay, so this is the complete bliss where we are being in touch with our own selves. So whenever we are in the complete Ananda, okay, there is no doing. We are just there, being. That's when we are human being. Yeah? The rest of the times we are busy doing. So if you see what has happened here in this Upanishad, and in every Upanishad for that matter, this whole thing has been an experience for the student, and they have shared their experience, and that's why these all are pramanam. Like what Raghuramji told yesterday, anything in the Shruti is a pramana. It is not something that we can doubt because they have shared their experience, what they have seen. And the best part here, they say, is all can attain Ananda. Like what Swami Vivekananda says, every soul is potentially divine. It is possible that each one of us can get into that state of Ananda to know our true nature. These methods are given. There is a wonderful, complete guidance of our scriptures. So using that as a handle, we can definitely once we start our journey, at some point in time, we can definitely meet our true self. So this is what is the summary of Panchakosha model, one prakriya that is given in Taittiriya Upanishad. These all are theories. So we need to understand the theory before we get on to the practical sadhana. Thank you so much. Now, some glimpse of practical sadhana will be given by Vijayaji. Over to Vijayaji.
Yeah, thank you, Bala. A wonderful explanation of how we also can get to realize our true nature through the Panchakosha Viveka. So I'll just share my screen. Yeah, I hope you all can hear me. So all these while we were listening to talks about the different prakriyas, the different examination that we have to do, right? The Atma Pariksha, the Sukha Dukkha Pariksha, the Avastatraya, all that. So today we saw how the Panchakosha, how the Guru guides the Shishya into the Panchakosha, where the Shishya himself realizes the Ananda state. The Guru does not tell him that you are that Ananda. He tells the Shishya, you go and find out. You go and find out your true nature. So to understand all these, yeah, the Vedantic philosophy and the Vedantic knowledge, it's very important that we have the need for sadhana. That is why the necessity for sadhana is there. So we saw that all the different Upanishads have a prakriya. So we saw that in prakriyas are methods of investigation, where the Upanishad tells us how do we go about exploring the different aspects. Yeah, so we saw the Sukha Dukkha Pariksha. Then we saw the Panchakosha Viveka, which was done by Bala. Today and yesterday we saw the Avastatraya Pariksha, where we have these different states in us, the waking state, the dream state, the deep sleep state, and beyond all that, the Turiya, the witness to all this. So now in Bala's Panchakosha Viveka, we saw that looking inward, right? When he was doing the tapas, when the Guru guided the Shishya, go do your own tapas, what did the Shishya do? Did he go looking outside in the nature and find out, oh, what am I, who am I, like that? No, what he did was looking inward. So it says that looking inward, you get the answers to your questions. So can we have our own prakriya? We saw that Upanishad is saying that these are the prakriyas. So here it says that can we develop our own method, because man is supposed to be more intelligent, and now modern days with a lot of tools available for scientific reasoning and analyzing and all that, can we develop our own prakriya? So what it says, every Upanishad has one or two prakriyas. And what does the prakriya lead us to? It says that it helps us to understand our true nature. Yeah, that is what every prakriya we saw from the Sukha Dukkha Pariksha. So all these different prakriya, realizing that, making us understand that we are that bliss. Yeah, that is what the prakriya does. It helps us to understand our true nature. Methods can be different, right? Each Upanishad we saw that the methods were different. And necessary, it's very important that we also start our journey and start our own method of investigation. So it is important that we have our own prakriyas. Now, why all these prakriyas is because basically we want to understand the Vedanta, what the Vedanta tells us. So the first question I think we saw was, who am I, right? What is my nature? How do I associate myself with or identify myself with? Do I identify myself with the angry state? Or do I identify that I am a thinker? Yeah, I have a thinking job. I have a job which helps me to analyze, rationalize. So a lot of brain work is done. So is it my nature of a thinker? Or do you associate that, oh, I am an angry person? But are you always angry? That is a question that we need to ask. Or you are doing something. Yeah, all of us are in our day-to-day activity, whatever work that we are doing. So is that all that you are doing all the time, right from the time you wake up till you go to sleep, you're just doing, doing, doing? Is there a non-doing phase also? So beautiful, like Bala said, as a human, are we just doing, doing, or are we also a human being? Yeah, so very important question. Yeah, so we need to find out what is it. So why this? So when we see all this, so Shastriji says that you do your own prakriya. So what is prakriya we saw is a method of investigation. So now thinker, am I always thinking? Am I always talking? No, right? There is also a non-thinking phase, non-talking phase, and a phase where I'm not angry at all. I am a very calm person. Yeah, so every state you find that there is a complementary state also to it. So are these my true nature? Am I a thinker? Am I an angry person? Or am I a doer? Do we associate with that only and we think that, oh, that is my true nature? Is there something more to it beyond this? So again, we continue understanding more of it. Now, Vijnanamaya Kosha, yeah, like Bala said, Vijnanamaya Kosha is the intellect level. So intellect helps us to rationalize, make a wise decision, discriminate among things, what is right, what is wrong. So But he is saying that Vijnanamaya Kosha is a toiling state. Yeah, it is a tiring state. It is a ayasthana. That's what Shastriji calls it. It says it is a tiring phase. Why is it a tiring phase? Now, if you go to think that I'm doing my job like as a scientist. So when we are doing prakriya, we feel that all of us are in that using the scientific method. Yeah, so all of us are scientists. So let's think that I am a scientist. So I'm thinking, oh, I have to do this. Who am I? Who am I? I have to find this answer to this question. So I'm thinking, I'm using different methods, what the Upanishad has told us. Yeah, so but every bit we have seen that we give lot of weightage to the doing phase, what we are doing. I'm doing this, I'm thinking, I'm doing this, I'm analyzing. We are giving a lot of importance to the thinking phase. So that is why sometimes we feel that end of the day we are tired. Yeah, we have done a good work, we are happy and little that over, yes, I've done today's job, but at the same time at the end of the day we are tired. Correct? Why is it happening? Because the thinking, the analyzing that we are doing is draining a lot of energy from us. Like Bala said, we are the body, but what is that is which is allowing us to continue our work is the energy, the life force. Yeah, so all of us have this life force, which is responsible for the different activities that we do. And because of this, doing, what is happening? Our energy is getting sapped up and we are tired by the end of the day. So then we need to also give a weightage. We saw, right? We also have a doing phase and a non-doing phase. So why do we always think that we are a doer, we are a doer? Why can't we think that, oh, I am that non-doing phase where I am just want to relax, I'm just want to keep my eyes closed, enjoy that silence. Yeah, why can't you be in that phase also? Why can't you think about that phase also? So that is what we saw, that the Anandamaya Kosha is a comforting phase. Yeah, Vishranti Sthana, the restful phase. So when we understand this, what happens? The notion of doership is weakened by this above logic. Yeah, so this is a simplified prakriya. So we are can like this we can have our own prakriya, own method of investigation. So yes, I'm not saying that we don't have to think. Yes, we have to think when we are doing our work. We have to think, but at the same time, can we not be about the focusing like we saw focusing for non-important things? Non-important thing can just flow. Important things you focus. So focus, defocus. That has to be the path. And like how we saw in yesterday's Avastatraya this, how he says that Shanai Shanai Uparame. Slow and slow, you do your, you get into that meditative state. You can't be just in that Ananda Sthiti. Okay, from today I know that I am that Ananda, so I will get into that Ananda Sthiti. No, we have to work towards it slowly because we identify ourselves, right? I'm a angry person, I'm an irritated person. Yeah, so the next, I hope my voice is clear. Yeah. Now, for doing this, for change in the perception, yeah, we always think that we are a doer. Can we also just be in that silent state, be in that happy state? So, what is required is change in our inner values. Yeah, so here you see the picture of a milk, right? This is a bottle containing milk. So, what you see here, how do we know it's a milk? Because we know that it is white in color, correct? And this is a picture of the fire. So, how do we know that what is the quality of the fire? Is to burn, heat. The property of the fire is to heat, correct? So we need to understand our own inner values. What is our dharma? So here we say that, beautiful, it says that, what is our svabhava dharma? What is our inner nature? And what is the agantuka dharma? Agantuka dharma is that one which is borrowed from outside. Now, what is our svabhava dharma? Is our svabhava dharma to get angry all the time? Or just be doing all the time that I have no rest, I have to take care of my family, yeah? My family responsibility is on me, so I have to do. Is that what you are? Don't you have, your own likeness or something willing that you would like to pursue? You would just want to sit back, relax, listen to some nice music. So maybe that is your swadharma. But what is this agantuka dharma? Is that which is borrowed from outside. So here we need to do our prakriya. So what are these things? Whether it is our swabhava dharma, our own inner values, or is it something which is borrowed from outside. So beautifully here, Shankara, Adi Shankara beautifully says that yadi agantukatvam vimoksaha upapadyate. If it is a agantuka dharma, you drop it off. Yeah, if it is borrowed, it can be dropped. He says, yadi swabhavikatvam moksha prasangam apina asti. So if it is swabhavika dharma, nobody can take it away, correct? So that is why I gave the picture of the milk and the fire, because the whiteness of the milk, you can't take it away from the milk, right? Right? When you say milk, you know that it has to be white. When we add something in it, it becomes a milkshake or whatever it is. But milk means we know it is white, it is milk. So it is a natural quality of the milk. Similarly, fire, the natural quality of fire is to heat, it is to burn. So if it is, he says that if it is a natural quality, nobody can take it away. And here one thing that he says that, and if it comes and goes, this agantuka dharma is also which comes and goes. Yeah, it is not a permanent thing within us. So we see that anger comes and goes, right? We are not always angry at the time, at all the time. Anger comes and goes. So similarly, all the other thinking, we are not thinking always. So then it's a question to ask whether are we in that, is it an agantuka dharma or it is a swabhava dharma? So what are the hurdles in the path? Yeah, so we saw that now we know that, okay, if it is our own nature, then you keep it, you continue with it. If it is a borrowed nature, then you can drop it off, you can let go. We saw there, let go. Now here the picture of a potter, correct? Why we are not finding easy to let go? Here's the picture of a potter. So here it says that the potter uses a stick to propel the wheels, right? And the wheel moves fast, and that is how he is able to put the clay and the mud and water, mix everything, and then make beautiful shapes out of the pot where the wheel is running on its own. Just the first propel was needed, but the wheel continues running on its own. So similarly is our mind. Why? Because we are governed by these vasanas and samskaras. So two lakshanas, they say vasanas or samskaras have two lakshanas. One is speed and focusing, which we have seen very easily in the dukkha pariksha and the sukha pariksha. How, yeah, speed is what is causing the anxiety, the stress in us. So can we slow down? So it says that it is these vasanas are the conditioning which is there in us, right from this birth, the previous birth, all the memories, all these are there in our memory. Yeah, so it's like the Kulala Chakravat. Kulala Chakravat is this, the potter's wheel. Yeah, how the potter, he just gives the propels and then it just. So similarly in our mind also, correct? We just keep thinking about it. Yeah, so again, vasanas, see what happens, it starts as a habit. And then when the habit, you just keep thinking about it, doing about it, it becomes a vasana, which you feel that, oh, I cannot do without it. Okay, that is where when it becomes conditioning. Again, see, thinking, doing has become a habit for us. So can we move away from this conditioning? It says that wisdom alone cannot cancel these vasanas. Yes, we have this knowledge, right? From now these Upanishads, different Upanishads. We have the knowledge, but it says, is wisdom alone necessary? Yeah, knowledge alone necessary. That is where the need of sadhana comes. Because of the conditioning. Now Raghuramji was talking about the liking of coffee yesterday, correct? I like coffee. Maybe once in a while I drink coffee. I'm not a coffee addict. So you like coffee. So even if you don't get a coffee in one day, you're okay with it because you're not. But then what happens? One day of drinking coffee, oh, you like that coffee taste. Maybe next day you feel, oh, the coffee helped me to concentrate. So let me have one more cup of coffee. So next day also you have another cup. So what happens? This coffee becomes from a like, it becomes a need. Thinking that you cannot do without the coffee. Yeah, you get a headache, you're restless, all this happens when you don't have that cup of coffee with you. Correct? And this I think is the case with many of us. So that is how the habit becomes like a vasana, impression in the memory. If you don't get it, then we are angry, agitated, all that. So that is the reason, the need for sadhana. And very beautifully, Why the need for sadhana? Again, because the mind is very chanchal. Yeah, we know mind is fast. Lot of thoughts in the mind. They say in a day there are 72,000 thoughts in the mind for a normal person. And in a day we have some, I think, 84,000 seconds, right? So you can imagine that almost 80 to 90% of the time the thoughts are running in the mind. Very small percentage when we are calm and when we are silent. So here I would like to hear the picture says that never give up. Yes, we have to continue. We have to do work, right? So for that we need to persevere. We need to put in that effort. But again, it says let go. So both these are the same sides of the coin. It is helping us to balance. So it says the need for sadhana. Here I would, before I move on, I would like to quote from the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asked Sri Krishna, he says, Manas chanchalam he Krishna. He says that mind is chanchala. Pramati balavadridam. He says the mind is strong. Yeah, it is faster than the speed of the wind. Then how do I manage? How do I control my mind? He's asking Krishna. So Krishna says, Abhyasena cha vairagya. Abhyasa plus vairagya. You will be able to become a master of the mind. Can we control the mind? We'll say, okay, next 5 minutes, I'm not going to think. Do you think it is possible? You might, some beautiful example is given that in a class, the teacher says that, to the students, next to, they're talking about, say, the chapter on the animals. So that day's topic was on the frog, how the frog lives in the well and all that. Then how the frog has his own world. And I think we also have, right, like a frog in our own world. So the teacher says that, okay, now that we have thought about frog, next 1 minute, I don't want you thinking about frog. But what happens? Again, the thought of frog only comes, correct? So that is why Krishna says that you can't control the mind, you have to become a master of the mind. That is where the Vijnanamaya Kosha comes, the intellect comes. So we see that because the mind is chanchal, the need for sadhana is there. So to understand why the need for sadhana, it is to understand that we have a doing phase and a non-doing phase. The urge to do goes on and it is a load that we carry. Yeah, we say that, oh, I carry so much of burden on me. But why that burden? Can we just do our work and just let go so that we don't carry the load? So let go. Recognize that non-doing gives happiness. So again, this is what we have been again and again emphasizing, that learn to let go. And let go doesn't come easily, but we need to understand, yes, our job is to just do, yeah, and not be bothered by about the result, why it is not happening, because there are a lot of factors which are not under our control. So it says learn to do your work and be at rest. So let go. Recognize the non-doing phase gives happiness. So here I would like to give an example. Normally here, in SVYasa, and our teachers would normally give the example of the gulab jamun. Yeah, when we like gulab jamun. And when we eat gulab jamun, what happens? What is the state in our mind? Yeah, so what happens? So why the non-doing phase is important? So here I'm not going to take the example of gulab jamun today. So today I'm going to take the example of eating ice cream. Yeah, all of us like ice cream, and maybe each of us have different taste, yeah, different flavors. We like different flavors. Some of us like vanilla, chocolate, or say butterscotch, or nowadays natural ice cream. So I like that tender coconut ice cream. Yeah, all of us have different taste for ice cream. And then when you have that ice cream, when you have the first lick of the ice cream, what happens? That ha feeling, correct? What is happening in the mind when you're having that first lick of ice cream? The mind is in a very silent state. So from the doing, thinking that I am want that ice cream, you go to the shop, when you have the first lick of ice cream, you are in that non-thinking phase, non-doing phase. So can we recognize that? So this is just a simple example of ice cream that I gave. So like that, we can do our own prakriya about different things. Yeah, so it says that, so what is happening here? Yeah, when we are doing, a lot of energy is expended, right? So when we are that silent state, the energy is getting conserved. So that is what is relaxing. When we conserve the energy, that is what is more relaxing. So can we recognize that this non-doing state is what is giving us the happiness? So progress slowly in the path of let go. Let go is not easy. So first thing what he says is let go of the ahankara, ego. Yeah? In the yoga path, they say if you want to progress in your yoga path, you have to let go of the Arishad Vargas. They say Arishad Vargas are all the enemies within us, all the hurdles that is there within us. Your kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, all that which is there within us. That we need to let go. But that again, we have to be aware, right? Oh, why am I? We think that oh, it is we are conditioned to get angry if things are not happening, right? But can we stop, pause, and observe, be aware, be mindful? It is a long process. That's why it says that progress in the path is slow. So what is the result of this sadhana? Yeah, we're doing all this sadhana, and we say that yes, practice is very important. So what do we get out of this sadhana? So we saw that vasana, yes, we are all bound by these vasana. So it says that when we are in the let go state, the result of the sadhana is vasana kashaya, manonasha, and atma bodha. So vasana kashaya, we saw that vasana is all about speed and focusing. So vasana kashaya is slowness and defocusing, feeling that expansiveness. Yeah, that is where what takes us to that silent state. So vasana kashaya. Manonasha. See, when you think of any object or this, you always form an impression in the mind, right? Pictures come in the mind. Oh, if it is a rose flower, it will be like this. It will be this color. You always have an impression formed in the mind. And why these impressions are forming is because of all these vasanas and samskaras. So now they are saying, because of the sadhana, what happens? Manonasha happens. The elimination of formation of the impression, the pictures and the sounds in the mind happens. So the mind is much more calm. Yeah, you are ready, or you are open to receive information in a new way, not with preconceived ideas, preconceived notions. And Atma Bodha. Atma Bodha is the Vistarata which happens. Yeah, when we say that slowness, focus, slowness and expansive state, Atma Bodha state is that expansive state that we feel. And you see this picture here, the lake and the one drop and that ripples in the lake. So that has to, the ripples in the mind has to come down, and we have to have that chitta shuddhi. Yeah, when the mind is calm and silent, we are able to think clear. We are able to do our work better. We are able to interact in a better way. Yeah, but when there are ripples in the mind, when the ripples, the lake is calm, we are able to see the reflection of whatever is there, right, from till the bottom of the lake. But when the ripples are there, you can't see anything. Like that, similar is in the mind. If the mind is full of anxiety, full of thoughts, yeah, you are not able to see things clearly and do your things properly. So what's the result of sadhana? So we are seeing that importance of sadhana. Now we saw that need of sadhana. What is the result of sadhana? Why is it important to do our sadhana as a daily practice? See, as yoga practitioners, we have heard of, or I've been teaching, so I tell, here's like, students coming, new students joining, telling me, yeah, I've learned yoga, some 3 months I learned. So is 3 months of learning yoga enough? What is sadhana? Sadhana is something which you have to keep persevering. You have to keep putting in the effort day in and day out. Why? Because they say that you are governed by the gunas. Yeah, you're governed by the prakriti. They say mind is strong and bulky. We have seen that. Yeah, the speed of the mind, they say, is faster than the speed of the wind. Mind is strong and bulky. Yeah, filled with rajas, passion and desire. So you can see all these are passion. You can read all the qualities of rajas. Yes, you need rajas because when you are doing something, if you don't have that passion in you, you will not. But at the same time, when you finish the work, let go of that rajasic nature. Yeah, feel that peace inside. So we are filled with rajas and rajas, and also tamas. Yeah, inertia, laziness. Sometimes, like yesterday, somebody was saying, yeah, the alarm rings and we just shut the alarm and then again pull up the blanket and sleep. And nowadays in Bangalore, especially, it is raining, so early mornings are cold. You don't want to get up. So the tamas, laziness is there in us. But we need to, yeah, and mind is strong, saying that, yeah, I have a meeting at 9 o'clock. It's okay, I'll get up by 8 and quickly have my bath and breakfast. That is how the mind works. Okay, so what is needed? Mano nigraha is needed. Awareness, contemplation, yeah, steadiness, is very, very much needed. So again, like I said, we saw develop one's own prakriya to understand the Vedantic truths. Very important. Vedantic truths are many Vedantic truths. Okay. So again, let's see now what are the Vedantic truths. It says that always at peace, not shaken by any disturbance in events or situation. Yeah, can we maintain that peace inside? No, right? Situation, what are the outside situation bothers us. And we get restless, we are angry, all that. But what does Vedanta say? It says that happiness is that state of silence that we realize, that we get a glimpse of, right? We get a glimpse of that silent state. Can we understand that that is what is that happiness? And like I gave you the example of ice cream, maybe you can do like that prakriya for anything that you like and see how that state of mind is. Yeah. So we see that happiness is a state of quietude. Ananda is within us. So we don't have to keep looking outside for Ananda. Yeah, it is within us. Realized person is in a Sthita Prajna state. He is in a Sthita Prajna state. So what is the state of Sthita Prajna? Yeah, who is a Sthita Prajna? He says that the Sthita Prajna is the one who is balanced. Yeah, we are seeing this, right? Balance. Balance in any situation, in any event. He is that full of that calm state. He is that Shanta Swabhava. Yeah, he is full of grace. Yeah, he realized that he is that Ananda. So here I would like to quote a Kabir Doha. Beautifully, Kabir says that दुख सुख दोनों एक समान है, हर्ष शोक नहीं व्याप, उपकारी निहकामता, उपजय चोह न ताप. He says that Kabir asserts that the one who has banished all his mind's desires and is alike in both in happiness and gloom, and who helps others without any self-interest, is above the feeling of pain and pleasure. So that is a realized person, and that is the Sthita Prajna Sthiti. In Bhagavad Gita also, Sri Krishna talks about the Sthita Prajna state. So can we reach that state? Yes, we can. That is why that sadhana is needed. So thank you all. Hope you liked the discussion, what was talked about and what was discussed. So it says that can we have our own prakriyas? Yeah. So can we all do our own investigation? So Raghuramji, you can unmute yourself. So any questions? Or Raghuramji, will you like to sum up on today's talk before we have the questions? Raghuramji, are you there? Yeah. So any questions? Will you take up the questions? You can on your video also, Raghuramji. Yeah, so would you like to sum up the whole thing before we have the questions? I don't see any questions have come up. So would you like to sum up both the topics? Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, Namaste Didi. Yeah. I think you need to come a little closer. No, I can't hear you. Maybe you have to use a headphone or a speaker.
Huh?
Yes, now we can hear you. Yes,
How is it
now we
now?
can hear.
Can you hear?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yes.
Yeah. Raghuramji asked me to talk for 10 minutes.
Yes. Okay.
Because I happen to have the opportunity to be with all of you this evening.
Yes.
I've been trying to be with all of you for the last 3 days, but somehow I was taken away by other commitments.
Yeah, and all these years we have heard you talk. Now, feeling very happy that you were there as an audience, so you could share your insights with us.
I'm very happy to know that we have got the second generation who have come up with so
So
much
it's all with your
confidence,
blessings.
courage, positive
Yeah, thank
way
you.
of expression, good English, good confidence. You don't need a book to talk about what you are doing, good PPTs. So very happy that Raghuramji has been able to train all of you to become real masters in presenting what we experience. Yoga Bharati is basically for not only talking about it, Shastriji always used to say, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam. If you do not experience, you cannot be a good teacher. So I'm very happy that you are all coming up very satisfactorily in a very committed way with the least ego that I am the doer, which is the most important requirement. Very happy that Bala did a beautiful presentation of the Panchakosha Viveka, and you were able to take us through the idea that we should be able to create our own prakriya. What were the prakriyas that Shastriji himself developed? In fact, we all should be very grateful to his concept, or the three concepts that he really brought out. We can call this a Shastriji prakriya. Although it is all from the text, it's all from Yoga Vasishta, it's all from Taittiriya, these 2-3 concepts that we can label as Shastriji Prakriya could be that concept of silence is happiness, and the way he used to describe about Priya Striya Parishvaktaha Nakantana Bahyam Veda Nakantana Antaram Veda, how every moment of bhoga sukha is nothing but silence is the biggest contribution that he was able to drill into every one of us. And in fact, in every talk, he would always begin with happiness analysis. He would say, Shastriji, we have heard you so many times, why you always talk about this? Bhoga sukha is silence. There is one person in the group who has not heard me before, so I have to begin with that. This is what Shastriji was trying to say. So this is Shastriji's Prakriya, that we examine every moment. I give you examples of how he was able to experience this. He would be in the bathroom for a long time. It was not OCD, of course. What he used to do, experiment was, he would pour the hot water, and when the hot water is being poured on his body, he would examine his mind. Wow, how the body is getting refocused when the prana is getting drawn by the warmth of the water. What is the expansion you can get? How defocusing can happen? How mind can become free? How let go can happen at the head region when the drawn energy is drawn. This was his experiment. So every moment was an experiment for him. In fact, he used to sit in front of TV for long hours. People would make fun of him and say, what is this Shastriji? Or such a great Vedantin for sitting in front of TV. Why he would explain saying that, do you think I'm following the story there? Do you think I'm really trying to understand what is happening there or using my brain for that? I'm just sitting there, how the prana goes out through the eyes, gets stuck in that color changes that happen there, and how the freedom happens inside. I'm sitting in front of the TV, I'll switch off the TV and I'll see how the focusing starts. As soon as the TV ons, the whole energy goes through that and freedom happens here, let go happens here. So every moment, cutting Hudikai was a great experiment he used to do. How, when he is about to cut, he can maintain that defocused state of the coning effect that we normally do when you want to cut the vegetable. How much of my energy is getting focused, or can I do the cutting in a defocused state? These were all the experiments. Experiments that he used to do. His other prakriya was prana prakriya. He used to experiment whenever we used to say, ಶಾಸ್ತ್ರಿಜಿ ಇಷ್ಟೊತ್ತು ಕೂತೇ ಇರ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ ನೀವು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತೀರಾ? He will be sitting with his eyes open, of course. So he says, I do my prana pariksha. What is prana pariksha? I do at this level. As the breath goes in, I hold there and see how the changeover happens, and I keep on observing whether the reversal process can be further slowed down, further slowed down, further slowed down. This is what he used to do experiments with in his prana pariksha. So the three messages that we could always contribute, think as the contribution of Shastriji is happiness is silence, stress is speed, focusing and defocusing. These are the greatest contribution that he always used to give. This Vasanakshaya, Atma Bodha, that Manonasha that you talked about, he very clearly talks about that. In Vasanakshaya, the speed has to reduce through slowing down process. Through slowing down, you read that Manonasha, which is the silence. And then in Atma Bodha, what is the difference between Manonasha silence and the Atma Bodha? That's he beautifully describes in the Let Go book, where he says the difference is you are slow down, but that focusing should get completely dissolved to defocus state, expansion. So the whole of the Vedantic knowledge, whole of the Indian knowledge, he condensed in just 2 words, slowing down and expansion. What a contribution, what a formula he has given us. And this we apply in all our participants. There are hundreds and thousands of patients who have benefited. They expand, they do this refocusing from the painful point, and from there they cure themselves, cure their cancer, cure their back pain, cure their hypersensitivity, just by applying this concept of focusing and defocusing, silencing, and recognizing that my happiness need not depend on external objects, because my true nature is that defocused state, silent state. So let us just remember this under all circumstances. Is what he always used to drive home. Thank you all. I'm very, very happy that Bala did a wonderful job of Panchakosha Viveka. Vidya, you did a very good job of talking about how important sadhana is, and you emphasized that each one of us to develop our own prakriya, and that is only possible if you are introspective throughout the day. While you are talking, walking, Pashyan, Shunman, Spashan, Jigran, Ashnan, Gachan, walking, talking all the time, how we can maintain that inner defocused awareness is what he was always trying to make us understand. Wish you all the best. Thank you. Over to
Thank you,
Raghu.
Didi, for all your guidance. You'll take up the questions, Raghuramji?
Yes.
Yeah, it
Tell
says
me, what are
Anand,
the questions?
yeah, it says Ananda Maya Kosha is also experienced. So who is that experiencer?
Right. That is why in the Veda, in the Upanishad, they say that kosha is still outside of you. And you are somebody who is behind the kosha. And that is why he says that your being is something which is beyond even experiencing. Beyond experiencing is a state of being. And that's what you are. So that is where you are beyond the Anandamaya Kosha, and then you are one with that. And Yeah.
The next question, it says that sometimes in spite of the knowledge and sometimes the
Yes.
sadhana happening, there is sometimes moving in the wrong direction. So how do we do that? How do we manage that?
You know, there are two things that we need to do. One is uh, don't lose heart, because that's only anything that we try to help towards going towards that is supposed to be sadhana. There are possibilities that sometimes sadhana will be good, sometimes sadhana will not be very good. Sometimes we feel that we are doing very good, the meditation or any practice that we are doing really takes us into that direction. But sometimes we feel that it does not happen that way. You know, particularly subtler and subtler that we go, much more um, volatile state it is. That means to say, deep meditation, it happens sometimes, it doesn't happen. Deep inside the Anandamaya Kosha, sometimes will be there, sometimes will not be there. But only thing is that persistence, continuously doing it, is the one which pays the results.
So like
It is
I would
like the
also,
way, you know, Vijay, it is like the way that
yeah,
on the tightrope walk, when people are walking, there's always possibility that you swing on one side, swing on the other side, like that. But only thing is that when you swing away from, from the center, you try to pull yourself back onto the center. So this is a constant activity that's going on. That's why it is called as something which is very dynamic way that we are. We are very lively.
yes, yes, Raghuramji. Thank you so much. Because I remember when I first started my yoga practice, when I first
Yeah.
went to my yoga class, I was always had this question like, there's so much competition in the world. We are always restless, always in the wanting state. Yeah. So
Yeah.
first class when I went and the teacher said that just accept yourself the way you are.
Yes.
Such a eye opener for me. Oh, can I be like that? Just accept
Right.
me the way I am. Because the world is expecting so much of us, right? The expectations are
Yeah.
there and we are caught in that. But can we just
Mm.
let go of that expectation and just be? That's
Yeah.
what we say, human being, right? So just be. Can we do that? So that is what I think the sadhana path is all about.
Shankara says that. Shankara says, Jalamapi taralam. That means to say, it is so volatile, easily disturbable, more volatile than water itself. Nalini Jalagati, Jalamati Taralam. So, but even then, that we continuously try to do it, that's how we get the control over that. So, that we need to do it.
Yeah, it says that how will we know that the prakriya we have chosen is the right one?
Yeah, one thing is that if you take a larger picture, that means to say when you are, say, over a period of say 1 month or 3 months, 6 months, when you see that you are progressing. And there are two indications through which that you progress. Any prakriya has one very important thing is that degree of awareness. You easily recognize that you are going away from the sadhana path. So this is one is the awareness. And second thing is that earlier what you would not even recognize that there was something like going away from the sadhana path. This now you recognize. That means to say you develop a self um, a master within you. You develop the master within you. That brings you back. That helps you to bring you back.
Yeah,
Being and laziness, procreation, procrastination,
procrastination.
bhavana. Oh, it's bhavanas. How do you differentiate between being and laziness? Shastriji always used to say that there is always this possibility that we are lazy. Let us not paint ourselves we are in great sadhana and we are peaceful. No. Therefore, not only Shastriji, he always said that try to creep some sadhana or the other on a routine basis. And including our, Chandrasekhara Bharati, the Periyar of Kanchi Swamiji, he also said, like the way, very beautifully, he said that, like the way that even the golden ornament also sometimes need to be polished. So therefore, because its shine goes away, when the gold can also carry the dust and then lose its shine, your mind also is like that. Therefore, a sadhana is something which works like cleansing the mind on the routine kind of a dust that is there. So we need to keep the sadhana. Generally, the beautiful sadhana that we could have it is the japa, either of Omkara or of this one. The three things. One is the Omkara, and the second thing is the Gayatri, and third is the Mrutyunjaya. Parampara has picked up.
Yeah, actually, yesterday somebody was asking, right, how easy it is to let go. I think the Mrutyunjaya mantra gives us a
Yes,
beautiful way of how to let go. It says that Urva Rukamiva Bandhana.
right,
It says how a ripe cucumber falls off its creeper. So that way,
right.
living in the world, take in all the fragrance, take in all the
Yeah,
positivity,
yeah,
at the same time learn to be non-attached.
yeah.
Let go
Don't
how a
think,
ripe cucumber.
yeah, don't think of leaving the world, but think of fruitation within yourself, ripening yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
Very
That's
nice. Yeah,
so this Mrityunjaya mantra can be taken as a, what to say,
yeah.
a tool for sadhana.
Right. These are all supposed to be called as the Taraka mantras. Rama Taraka mantra, like that Gayatri Taraka mantra, Mrityunjaya Taraka mantra. These are all Taraka mantras.
So would you like to sum up today's talk?
Yeah, I mean, just a few
Yeah, I
sentences.
think two more questions have come.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The tightrope walker usually holds a long stick, balance himself and move forward. What is that stick that we need to progress? Very beautiful. That's what is the idea of the Gayatri or the Mrityunjaya mantra. This is the long stick. And sometimes even people take up this morning, evening chanting this Vishnu Sahasranam and Lalita Sahasranam. They're also nice, wonderful tools. See, what happens is that it is musical, it engages you, it has nice, wonderful rhythm. All these things will engage you. That is very important.
There is one more question before that, Raghuramji.
For peace, we need to break the impressions, judgments, and the mind. So is awareness the Prakriya tool to break this? Yes, it's very important. You know, Jesus Christ has given a very beautiful idea, saying that, let me not judge so that I will be judged. So whenever that you are observing us, we become judgmental. He said, we don't have to judge. Unless until it is absolutely necessary for us, then we need to judge. There is a very beautiful, beautiful message that, you know, Kanyakumari Ekanath, Vivekananda Kendra president, after Ekanath Ranade, Dr. Lakshmi Kumari was there. And it so happened, I mean, she was very, very close to me. So we were in Washington, DC for a conference. And at the conference, there are a lot of things which were mismanaged, disorganized way. Then she said, Raghu, come on, let's go together, walk around, see everything very critically, not to find fault with them, but to see that those faults we don't do in our conference. Such a beautiful lesson. There's a big difference between that. I don't want to do that part. But I'm not finding fault with the organizers there. Because the simple reason, her logic was that if they have done some mistake, it may be because that they have their own problems that were there because that the mistakes, shortcomings happened. We should avoid those things in our conference, because after that Washington conference, we were having an international conference in Prashanti. So that's why she was suggesting me that. I thought it was very beautiful. So non-judgmental for the outside.
It says that in Yoga Nidra state, I am in Manonasha Vasana
Vasanakshaya
Kashaya state.
Yeah, definitely Vasana Kshaya is happening in the Yoga Nidra phase. But Manonasha has not happened completely. There is, we have to really take the prakriya of meditation, one of the Dharana Dhyana Samadhi, for the reasons of Manonasha. Yeah, but then Vasanakshaya is happening. You know, the reason for that is Vasanakshaya happens when you are in the state of awareness. Manonasha, we have to do the sadhana of meditation and all that. So in Yoga Nidra state, basically that Vasanakshaya happens because that your big time awareness is there in the Yoga Nidra phase. Oh, can you say more about Vasanakshaya? See, Vasana is actually whatever that is built from over, repeatedly happening becomes like a habit, and habit hardened becomes Vasana. Vasana means that you have a tendency to be pulled towards that. For no reason, you are pulled towards that. Because that there is some other influences, like, oh, it is time, so I must have this, it is time, so that I should do it. I like that. Somehow external things connected with that you are bound to go there. This is what is Vasana. So therefore, this is actually beyond the habit. So what we need to do is to see that break the habit once in a while, periodically, so that the habit will not build up into Vasana. And that's why we have such a beautiful system in our Indian culture, that every day at the same time we have food, we have this, that, and all those things. But weekly once we do the fasting. 15 days once we see that we don't sleep. That means that routine habit formation, Vasana formation of that having food, doing this, all these things will drop off without disturbing us. You see, if you have taken up doing the upavasa, say once in 15 days, the Ekadashi day, once in 50 days it comes. On that day, you don't even feel hungry. So it automatically what happens is you come out of this Vasana formation. That's the beauty of it. That's why Vasanakshaya is something which can be done by having this kind of some vratas that we hold on to. Mauna vrata, we just don't speak for one day. Once in a while, do not have tea, coffee, more than once in a while. Say twice in a while. Vasana needs Vasana needs self-restraint. That means to say, it basically you decide on your own. And another thing is Vasana restraint, self-restraint should not be like harming you, should not be like disturbing you. That should not be there. Or converting itself into some irritation, etc. That should not be there.
How do you want to sum up, Raghuramji?
Yeah, a nice questions. Can you say more about Vasanakshaya once in a while? Okay.
That's what.
Self-restraint is a defocusing manner. Right. That's very beautiful addition. That is self-restraint in a defocusing manner. Beautiful. See, that's a nice way of putting it. In a defocused manner that you do the self-restraint. Yes. Without all these efforts in Yoga Nidra, are vasanas just sublimated like camphor? Yes and also no, in the sense that these are the two different types of psychology. What we call it as psychology, I mean, from the yoga point of view, there is the introvert and extrovert. In the case of introvert people, yes, it will definitely happen. Like a camphor, that vasana is just sublimated. But in the case of extrovert people, then they have to do the practice. Because they want to literally do something and see to conquer that. That's why it is necessary. So you want me to sum up?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful presentation. Particularly, I like the way that both of you and Bala presented the ideas of Panchakosha, and then how we can overcome that, and how to identify ourselves with the blissful state deep inside, which is our own nature. in that sense, that Shastriji always used to say, the Anandamaya Kosha still has a taint of excitement. Whereas when you go beyond that, self doesn't even have that excitement. So that is the thrill kind of a thing. And that's what he used to decipher it. But then what happens is that Anandamaya Kosha itself is not triggered by anything outside. So therefore, basically, there is no external factor added to Anandamaya Kosha. So therefore, it is easy to go beyond that. That is the reason why Anandamaya is also given like Kosha. Kosha means it has a sheath. It has a cover over you. So that cover is necessary as long as we are in this body. And the moment we leave this body, we go beyond that. This is what is the idea, that essentially that Anandamaya is given in the form of a kosha. It is like the way that Ramana Maharshi calls it as like the way that the soap bubble, the bubble is there. It maintains a shape, it maintains nice, wonderful thing. It also reflects colors and all those things. But look at the way soap bubble is not affected by the gravity. It's not affected by anything. So our Anandamaya Kosha should be like that soap bubble. Anytime we can just go beyond that. It will be easy for us to go beyond that. So this is how essentially this Panchakosha, if you look at Panchakosha in almost all the ceremonies in our Indian culture, we always chant that Panchakosha, Taittiriya Upanishad. So therefore it is the most predominant, most prominent kind of a thing and very useful for sadhana. And it is not that we need to experience that. So once it so happened that I was in Ramakrishna Mission and some Turkey people had come with me and then they were purchasing. I also picked up some book and then I wanted to pay that at the counter, and the person took that and then he was making a bill, head down, and as if he is talking to himself or quietly to me, he said, "Sir, I really admired your talk on Panchakosha, your concept of Panchakosha. It was so very vivid. And then it is so clear that I can apply in my life. And then I've been trying. I think I'm successful 70%. And then it continues. I don't mind it." Wow. I asked him that, "So you heard my talk?" He said, "Yeah, I heard your talk." "And where did you hear my talk?" So he said a place. And that place, what he said, I gave a talk almost like something like about 3-4 years back. So that person remembers his talk and tries to apply that almost like 3-4 years, 5 years. So this is something which is extraordinary. So all that whatever that we present has to become anubhava. Anubhava, that means to say you should be able to experience that. I'm so glad that the presentations today, yesterday also, were almost like showing the confidence of experiencing. You see, that's what is the idea that's very important. And I'm so glad that these things have been done. And not only me, wherever Shastriji spirit may be there, will be very happy and his blessings will be there on all of us. So with all those things, wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Raghuramji. We always look for your guidance and support. So let's all end the session with the Shanti Mantra. Namaskara Mudra. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina. Sarve Santu Niramaya. Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu. Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all. So today we saw the